State-level workshop on understanding mountain people's approaches and practices for climate change adaptation gi nini chanba aroiba numit ki session June gi tang 12 ayuk ki pung 10 taba matamda hauki.
So we will discuss subject by subject. First, Ms. Neha.
Ahanba session da focus group discussion gi saruk ama oina Ms. Neha Bharti, Principal Researcher, NMHS Project Terina, wahog dok piraba matungda Ms. Narmata, Program Coordinator IMI na National Mission on Himalayan Studies and Related Project ki matangda PowerPoint presentation piki. Makha tarakpada Chathingla Horam, Young Researcher IMI na case study presentation tauki.
United Nations Agencies on Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC, states that throughout the 21st century, climate change impacts are projected to slow down the economic growth, erode food security, and make poverty reduction programs more difficult to implement. So, to deal with climate change, there are primarily two strategies: mitigation and adaptation. Mitigation measures or activities addresses the root cause of climate change by reducing the emissions of greenhouse gases. On the other hand, adaptation activities are mainly aiming to address to lower the risk posed by the consequences of climatic changes.
So within NMHS also a lot of projects have been sanctioned, and this project is the only one which is covering all of the Indian Himalayan region, all the 10 states and 2 districts of Darjeeling and Kalimpong in West Bengal. The goals of the project in very technical dry language are projected here, but if I had to break it down, it is two simple objectives, 2 goals. That first is to do a little bit of research on the sectors within the mountain states which are more vulnerable to climate change, and try to focus on the contribution of the mountain communities in coping the challenges posed by climate change within these sectors. And then the second is to through a little bit of research on the community's role in combating climate change, make a sound case for communities' contribution when the policy reforms are planned. So one of the framework for climate change within India is the NAPCC and the SAPCC. So while the SAPCCs now will undergo a review and come up with a version 2 in all of the states, and an Indian exercise that has to be conducted, try to put a solid case for how there already are practices that communities have been following, which could be taken into cognizance while coming up with a second round of planning for climate change.
In the case study sites that I have selected, shifting cultivation or soil burning or tubing, it is still the prevalent agriculture system in most parts of eastern and southern parts of Ukhrul district. And before we start with this, we also need to understand the different kinds of shifting cultivation that is in practice. So some may be unsustainable and some are quite sustainable, I should say. And so that's why the tubing in northern and the western parts of Ukhrul district and eastern and southern parts of Ukhrul district, they are very different. And the villages covered under my case study are East Assam, and the numbers in the bracket are its population, and then Shungri or Shorte, it's the same village, Bumpakulan and Ningcho. So how I have chosen these sites are, we made sure that these selected villages they are representative sample villages of the entire region, taking into consideration their livelihoods. So when we talk about shifting cultivation, we know like all the perception that we have is that the fellow cycle has been decreasing, and then it has decreased lower down to 2 or 3 or 5 years of cycle. But with my research findings and my site visits, these are the fellow cycles that I have noted down. So in these villages, so when we talk about fallow land, we have to see that there is high dependency of livelihood and fallow lands as well. So, and then it has lots of economic functions, and especially NTFPs.
Session adugi felicitator Miss Fentriman Jeswal, Secretary IMI na case study presentation aduda wahang pahong tawagi khudong chaba ama participants singda hawdokpaga loinana ayuki session adu loisankhi.
What I want to ask to you is that in your case studies, okay, is there any impact of climate change on hello cycle of zooming areas in Manipur?
So it's a very small case study, and what you have asked is it's a long-term assessment thing. So yeah, I'm definitely going to note that, but we have not done that yet. And I think we need the institutional infrastructure for doing that. Yeah, like maybe a separate project on that.
How we are going to respond into that context without understanding conflict sensitivity tools or analysis. So that is very important. Second part is there is no administrative infrastructures existing. Even SDO cannot sit there. Then how we can think of building the institutions and infrastructure. Even the foods for the army is yet dropped in some of the villages. My second question is, you also mentioned a large number of young people are migrating from the village, and how it is going to impact in the long run, in 30 years or 50 years time, how it's going to impact of this Junkalis. My last question is, Government of India already signed with 7 companies to mine chromiums on this mountain. If the 7 companies start mining, all this mountain will disappear. That's how I said yesterday, they already signed agreement. It's waiting for it, mining this. And how government, NGOs, researchers, academics, lawyers, and then other people will work on this, and how we are going to put these things in our action plan or policies in the long run.
In terms of the SDO saying that the district administrations are not functional because of the situation, I would say as a local, I would say conflict is both a context and a pretext. A lot of officials are using the conflict as a pretext to comfortably work from IMPHAL and operate from IMPHAL. So it's a political will that's required from our bureaucrats to start working from their places, because people are still living there. That's a human being living in that village. You are also a human being. It's an equal threat, so you have to face it if you are working in a conflict situation.
So I was studying this best traditional practices, community forest management, how they were managing the forest for different end benefits. They were conserving the forest primarily for their water source, and water source for watering their wet rice cultivation in terrace field. So I was waiting to hear from your case study where anybody is picking up this multiple role. Forest conservation, water resource conservation, then an alternative to shifting conservation. Wet rice cultivation with pisciculture, you have seen in rural area and in rural area also.
Yeah, Grihang village, so it's near the Burma border. So there's this big valley around here, no? So the village authority, what they have come up, they are planning for wet spatty cultivation near the village areas.
Terrace.
So yeah, it won't be terrace actually. Terrace, because it's a flat valley. Okay. There is wet paddy cultivation. So, and then they have not received any financial assistance from anywhere. So it's from within the community. They have taken out money from their own pockets, and they have started constructing like basic roads and all. So that's one of the plans that I came across.
June cannot be stopped, but the problem is June area remains to be degraded. And that we have to, the suggestion is, we have to find out means and ways how to manage the fallow lands. That is one of the basic findings that I have, fallow lands. Because fallow lands you have given that there is no much biodiversity, though you say the animals are grazing there, we are getting NTFs, but when we see the photograph or when we go and see, there is no much of biodiversity. Biodiversity is what we want, and if we have to manage the fallow land, then we have to make sure that the land becomes fertile after a few years. So we want that at least minimum 10 years fallow land, fallow period should be given so that we can start again. So one thing they found out was that when the agricultural land, these are June lands, were taken up by horticulture department, agriculture department, forest department, they try to plant up horticulture fruit trees. In that case, that particular June land is not available for June again. So that also we have to consider. When we talk about forestry, we try to take up some timber trees. And then that plantation of that timber trees in that fertile fallow lands, the land is not available for June again. That also we have to consider. And when we take up agriculture, there also you cannot ensure for irrigation. So the National Task Force says that the fallow land has to be managed. If we have to manage the fallow land, then we have to have the correct choice of species. The species must grow, and the villagers need to cut that tree and then do the June cultivation again.
Okay, thank you for that. I'm with the watershed management group. I'm working as a scientist for watershed management. So the intervention of the watershed project is to help or identify those areas. And another point she mentioned was there is no mapping for whether how much land is degraded. But I would like to suggest to you that there is a huge scientific work being done in the planning department or even in the remote sensing center, wherein we produce all how much area is degraded, how much area is for have the potential to be developed. So those kind of data,
that's very valuable to give, and
those kind of data I will help you 100%. I have the whole land use report with me.
Any other schemes is done through the consent of the local people. So let's just clarify properly that like the ZFMC or any other scheme, mostly is for the people. And first thing with their consent. So I mean, the land is not converted to the department again or the government. There's small clarification just only given. Second thing, shifting cultivation is a complex problem, we all know. And the approach has to be integrated approach, holistic approach. Not only one department, this and that. Second thing, not only scientific this approach and alternatives, but more important is policy planning also. That even you may have alternatives like gas crops, this and that. Even if you throw this orange seeds, it will grow. Our soils are so fertile. And, but one thing is that without this policy planning or developmental backup, if you don't have infrastructure for connectivity, this and that, you may have very good crop, very cash crop, anything. But if you can't sell, it's of no use. So in that way, the approach has to be more of a comprehensive, holistic, integrated approach.
Because we are seeing a lot of new practices of fishing, both in plains and in hills, where you use electrics, batteries, and then you use pesticides to, and in the process you kill all these micro-level insects and those who actually help the environment grow. So probably in your study, if you can include that, it will be of great help. Come up with a policy where you ban fishing using all these destructive methodologies. Thank you.
See, we need to also, while you're looking at conserved areas and community conserved areas, you also need to look at in a different way how these conserved areas can be utilized in a better way without, in a new way, which I think was saying that we need to look at a new way of doing things. I do know that in Rajasthan, in the Bali district, that in forest they are growing custard apple. So here's a horticulture produce which is coming from the conserved area, from the forest, and the villagers in the neighboring areas are getting the benefit of picking those fruits and selling them and earning a livelihood. So I think while you are looking at it from the supply side, from the infrastructure side, you also need to look at it from the livelihood side. How can we create sustainable livelihoods or improve sustainable livelihoods while conserving that area?
Because livelihood is the reason behind they exploit the natural resources. So while conserving that, how do you sustain the livelihood of the communities? So that aspect is very critical. One thing, and second thing, if you can include, is my personal interest, like Loktak Hydro project has downstream connected to Iran River. So communities has now concerned, but they are helpless to do it. If you can bring some study, what are the changes happens there and what measures can be taken up. Not stopping the hydro thing, but what kind of measures can be taken up. So the river things, Iran River.
There are also a group of people who are saying, we will not, allow researcher in our places, because once research comes to our place and find out that these are these medicinal products, total forest is being destroyed. So this type of thinking has also been started by the community level at the village level. And the third point of view is that you need to look into the economical point of view. When I say economical point of view, it will be more to do with, once the villager are looking for conservation of, forest, then what is the alternative of their fuel? The firewood. So the government skill Bujala impacts how much it impacts.
Thank you.
I've got one more input for you. Different communities with their customary laws, because that customary law can sometimes impact the land laws, the land handling laws. We discussed that yesterday also. So in some place, maybe because of the customary law, people may not be very interested in participating. So if you can include different communities with different customary laws, like for example, you have the Kukichin group. So you can pick few villages which belong to Kukichin group with their chief system, and then you can have the Naga this thing with their own village authority system, and how it impacts on community and people themselves.
So far as I found, the case studies are concentrate more or less on this museum-based aspect. What I would like to suggest is that climate change is also part of human emotion. So I would like Ms. Chanting to include the emotional aspect also, because like suppose if we practice Chuming, whether it is compelled by the circumstances that we are still practicing Chuming, or whether we love it, no. I would like to add this thing to include the emotional aspect. Thank you.
If something else is there, you can, as I said, discuss over lunch, and she will be visiting you people in your offices and in your organizations, and kindly help her with her the case number 2 and 3.
Now this is my last exercise, because it is entirely only for our experts and our knowledge officers, that we should look into the policy first. This is the first pillar for our revisiting the that SFHC version 2. So this during the policy analysis, please do to this context only, and the future part based on our experiences. Then our institutional analysis, who are our that institute, which are the good institutions, and to whom what to be given. These are the very critical issues. Then climate public expenditure analysis, my senior Professor Robindro will be analyzing about very much in this issue. That climate public expenditure analysis is very critical as well as the very important thing to discuss. So I think to this round table discussion, it is very important discussion, but time is very limited. I am just representing the government side as a nodal officer. So please try to have the estimate of this our government the targets. So now we are very fortunate that I would like to take the opportunity that we have the climate change cell here in Manipur. This is our website and our that email address. Anybody, any person who can contact with us, and we can have the weather information, different materials, and trainings also.
Numinini Chatharakpa workshop adugi aroiba amadi maroiba tangkak oiriba round table conference aduda Professor N. Mohindro, eminent economist amadi honorary advisor SAPCC version 2 na chairman oiduna inputs on state action plan on climate change version 2 hariba hiram sida nodal department sing Agriculture Department, Horticulture Department, ICAR, CAU amadi Manipur University loinana media gi stakeholders sing yauba round table conference pangthokpana workshop adugi aroiba saruk oiki.
So in order to have this, I would put like this: we have to act now. We have to act together. We have to act differently. These three messages are given by the World Bank as far as the climate change is concerned. I would like to request my colleague, particularly who belongs to Agriculture Department, El Sanat Oversee.
Under integrated farming system, we are undertaking rice-based cropping system, coarse cereal system, mostly that's prime crop is maize, pulse-based cropping system, oilseed-based cropping system.
Well, we have another very eminent person from Horticulture Department, very much interesting.
Horticulture Department has a separate way of doing, particularly in hill districts. Out of the total potential area identified, that is 276,000 hectares. And also, we have adequate number or adequate species of indigenous fruits. There are so many this underdeveloped or unutilized indigenous fruit crops. These are being taken care under RQUI.
Well, here is another very eminent person, my friend Mr. Puni of Indian Forest Service. He has been with us for quite a long time. He has a wonderful experience in the hills and also in the plain. Sir, please have your own time.
The challenge that we face today is forest protection. And this is the biggest challenge that we as a department we face, even in the state Manipur. Because so many people want to exploit the forest and forest resources. Starting from agriculture, from the poor layman, they take up agriculture that itself is attacking forests. The people who try to make some business, earn some money, timber smugglers, they attack the forest areas. People who want to make more money, they attack the forest and cultivate ganja, poppy, so many things. There are so many development works takes up because they want to have a big dam. So much of forest area is submerged. So from different angles that we have to say no to forest destruction. So many a times, or most of the time, even the government themselves, they think that forest department is a hindrance for developmental work. We are facing that challenge, not only from the public, but from the government side also. But we have to work, and we work. The basic thing cannot be changed because the forest policy says that 66% of the geographical area should be put under wood forest. This is not because the forest department is interested in protecting the forest, but this is because the forest has to perform the environment functions so that people may live on this earth.
We have Dr. Premsan of Health Department.
In the recent past, the last year actually, 2017, under the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, Government of India, there was a direction from the ministry that we should have a different action plan on climate change and human health. Our main areas of health concerned regarding the climate change is on four major issues, like the changing pattern of some diseases which are being seen in the last 10-20 years. The most important diseases are, we are taking out the vector-borne diseases like the rising prevalence of malaria and new incidents of outbreak of Japanese encephalitis, dengue, which have been reported because of the vector epidemiology, the mosquito breeding cycle, which have been implicated of the effect of the rising temperature and the humidity changes in different districts of Manipur, particularly in Chuchanpur and Tamenglong. And the state have been doing active surveillance in these activities by a different program known as Integrated Disease Surveillance Program, IDSP, which is under the National Health Mission, is going together with the Medical Directorate.
So I think holistically we have to try to check this pirating of indigenous species, rare and endangered species from this part of the region using the weapon talk Convention on International Trade of Endangered Species. It is SICE principle. So using this SICE principle, we should try from government side as well as from the NGO side to protect our green goals from this part of the region. While encouraging these indigenous people's knowledge, we also should try to take helps from the scientists from different institutions within the country, especially in Manipur, like Manipur University, Central Agriculture University, ICA, IBSN, like that. And even from the line departments also, concerned departments also. This one also I would like to highlight.
Environmental, you see, control, environmental control. Okay, please start.
Thank you, Professor and Chairman of today's panel. So the IWMP project, the Integrated Watershed Management Project, is a project which the Government of India initiated, and our state got this project in 2010-11. That's where it was. MP first initiated, the main object was water and soil conservation. So more or less it's a natural resource management project. But right now, again, there's a paradigm shift and the objective where it's for assured irrigation for sustainable agriculture. The project is very much covered in about 1,472 villages of Manipur. We have about more than 60,000 hectare area sanctioned. But again, the irony of the situation is though about 700 crore is sanctioned, but only about 15% or right now it reached up to 22% of the sanction amount is being released by the government. So the objective of 100% target is not possible, what I mean to say. So whatever, we have to prioritize the villages, we have to prioritize the work. So in coming to that point, we had some of the main work activities of the project is the creation of water resources, water conservation assets like farm ponds, then check dams, then we have small dugout ponds. Because when we talk about water, we should not just be talking about the surface water, which is for usable for either for our drinking purpose or for irrigation. But we also need to focus about the soil moisture content of a certain area or for Manipur as such. So in keeping in view this objective, those are long-term objectives. So short-term water for use for agriculture and for drinking purposes for daily uses, but at the same time, as a long-term measure, we need to increase the soil moisture content of the soil. So these are some of the interventions, like we have contour trenching, then we have rainwater harvesting structure, we have horticulture and agriculture activities.
Till now, we have discussed many things also, and my scientists also presented yesterday, I think. And we have many substitutes or alternatives and for the seedling cultivation, particularly different farming system models. But we have seen the impact. Everybody knows what is the climate change here, and I think I should not elaborate it. One is long term and another is very short term. And what we are facing in Manipur, particularly in the valley area as well as in the hills, is the short term due to the change in the rainfall pattern. And last year we faced heavy floods. This year we doubt whether we will get sufficient rain. When there is no sufficient rain, particularly in the hills, people suffer. And this is directly related to the soil moisture in the hills, particularly for the flood. And because of the deforestation, massive cultivation or shifting cultivation. We have recorded 1.2 lakhs under Zoom cultivation, out of which only current is 32 lakhs and the rest is abandoned. So everybody knows, I think all of us who are sitting here, that zooming is not beneficial to the human being. But the thing is how to sense it, that is the issue. Because we have the livelihood issue in the hills, who are depending particularly in the zoomland, and they have to patch the whatever crops grown or whatever harvest from the forest, and then as mentioned earlier by some speakers, that even the hunting. So how to cope up, it is the issue. Luckily, about 2 days back I was in Chandel district. I was sitting for a meeting with DC. I was surprised to know that under this new initiative of the present government, all the villagers got the LPG gas connection except for 5 who did not have the Aadhaar card in Chandel district. So then why should we depend on firewood? That is one, and I think mostly they must be getting prices for the sale of the wood. But one thing is, if you travel from Palem to this one, Chandel, all trees are fallen there, either it is timber or either it is, firewoods. So still we are, I think we need some social reformation. One is, as I mentioned, we have sufficient technologies available and farming system models where without affecting the zoom cycles, the ecology of the area, and it is demonstrated in many areas. We can have the success stories also. And what we want is, as mentioned earlier also, social factor, particularly I feel, we have to cover either with fruit trees, which is giving continuously benefit to the hill dwellers, or some plantation crops which need not cut, because in the zooming we have to cut every time, burn them. So definitely the forest cover will be affected, or the greeneries will be affected.
So actually this climate change, what you say, it is a natural process, we cannot stop it also. During the last 100 years, the rate is actually a little. Due to civilization, it will come on, going on, we cannot stop it. But how to mitigate this, that is the thing now we are discussing. And what are the policies which to make it adaptation? So, there may be so many factors, carbon dioxide, so many other gases are there. But science are trying very hard to tackle this. Don't worry, solution will come for the, what you say, reduction of carbon dioxide emission from the, what you say, civilization. But one thing we cannot stop. That means the harmful effect of declination of the vegetation. That is what we have to think too much. So, while we are hearing about the different policies and what are going on in the different departments of the state, so many good things or policies are going on. So to say, from the agriculture departments, even though so many policies are made, so many schemes are going on, I want to add something in their activity. Say for example, is there any fertilizer policy in the state? That is very, very important. Because among the so many factors which enhance the climate change, fertilizer is also one of the important things. Say, if I am not wrong, when I calculated the fertilizer consumption of this small state Manipur, say consumption of fertilizer, there is how much amount of fertilizer is bringing every year from in this state. What is the total cultivated area when I have calculated, it is really astonishing. It comes to over 140 kilogram per hectare. It is too high. It comes to almost nearer to the very developed state like Punjab and other things. When comparing to the neighboring state, Assam also, it is much more than almost 6-7 times more than that. Assam also. That is also one most factor we need to reduce it, because this is fertilizer has so many great impact on the climate change. That is why we need to make some policy. Although you are telling, says what to say, our farmers, more than the recommended dose of fertilizers, beyond which there will be no use to the crop cultivation also. They are applying more and more. That may be the reason so many high level fertilizers are using. That is why the state government should make some policy regarding use of the fertilizer in agriculture.
As a profession, we medias are ear, eyes, and the voice of the people. So we are here to observe and watch how the state action plan is going to make. What are the issues, the agendas, and the ideas were left when it is making, and what are the points discussed, and what are the points to be included. It is my duty. So if we know about the plans and what are discussed, we have to report to the people for their comment and suggestions. I have no knowledge about the climate change and the environment, so I have not much to say about it. We have apprehension that if the state action plan is made very positively, the implementation part will be very shortcoming. It may not to their public's demand. So we need to watch how such action plan is implemented. Many good plans and policies were made by the government, but its implementation part is very serious issue.
First of all, like we are gathering here today since yesterday. But the question is, to our fathers, mothers, brothers and sisters in the village, do they know that we are discussing about climate change? This is my first question. Because it is said that climate change occurs because of telecommunication. Maybe it is true or not. Had there been no telecommunication, and had there been no journalists, maybe who knows, we will be talking about climate change here today. Of course, it may be a joke, it may be a fact also. But what I would like to stress, my point is, journalists being a human being has an equal and important role to play in mitigating this climate change policy also. Well, of course, journalists here in Manipur, we are doing every day, we are finding stories about this climate change. Climate change stories are not so appealing as political stories. So in most cases, if we find a story also, our stories are kept at the back page. Or if not, it was kept at the embargo box. This is one reason. Unfortunately, Damo Mopi, the President of Indigenous Community, is also here. I would like to request him also to focus, being an editor, to focus more on this, to give attention to the correspondence when they find stories about this climate change also. And this climate change, as I have said, most of our fathers, mothers, and brothers at home, they are not aware about this climate change until and unless it is reported in newspapers, radio, or television. So I think we, the journalists, needs to do a lot. I'll share with you one example. I'm from Ukhrul, and Ukhrul is famous for this childless course.
Climate change and challenge. The World Bank says climate change challenge is a reality. But option before us is two. One, shall we go for curative measures? Shall we go for preventive measures? Of course, both curative intervention as well as preventive interventions are required. Which one is more important? That is for us to decide depending upon the local situation, you see. For example, in Manipur, whether curative measures are more important or preventive measures are more important, we have to decide after a number of rounds of discussion, you see, at local level, intermediate level and higher level. This is what I feel, because we can't have a definite only one conclusion. That's not possible. Another thing which I feel is normally, you know, we talk about sustainability, environmental sustainability, economic sustainability, social sustainability, political sustainability. You know, sustainability is not only one. There are one sustainability depends upon another sustainability. So we should have social sustainability, political sustainability, economic sustainability, then we can have environmental sustainability. It's not easy. It's not easy because it involves millions of factors, number of factors. They interact with one another. It's very difficult to identify which one is more important, which is less important. Anyway, that is one thing. Another thing which strikes me is we have before us, one is vision, another is a mission, and third one is action. We have a number of discussion about vision news. This could be the vision, rate of growth like this, environment growth like this. That is a vision. And then mission news, how to go about. What are main players? Whether they will work on mission mode or not. Then again, action programs. But unfortunately, in a state like Manipur, vision is also less, mission is also less, and action is also very much less. In all sectors, I would say. Because you know, we have here one gentleman from agriculture. I was thinking to have one idea from him, whether we have agricultural policy for sustainable development, whether we have forest policy for sustainable development, whether we have industrial policy for sustainable development. I think these are the issues before us when we talk about sustainability, because sustainability is the crux of the issue. Because I have said, and everybody knows, that climate change challenge is a reality. We can't go back. We have to start it. But one option which opt for is whether we must go for preventive measures, how much percentage, then curative measures, and a combination of the two, at what stages. So these are some of the issues. Well, I think we have had quite very interesting, very productive, very inspiring, discussion, and we also learned from the learned persons from the different departments. I personally appeal to all these sectors, and the departments particularly, that we must work together. I said in the beginning, may I repeat, World Bank says very clearly on climate change challenge. They say, act right now. You can't postpone. Act now. This is number one message. Number two, act together. All intersectoral performance, connectivity, health, cooperation is required. That means act together. Then act differently. Differently means with reference to time, past, present, and future, and technologies. Because the same technology cannot apply. Therefore, we have to act differently, you know, with reference to time and technology. Anyway, these are some of the challenging issues. And I'm quite sure that Northeastern region, particularly Manipur, this Meghalaya and Nagaland, Arunachal Pradesh will have a new policies. Because Dr. Navasandra has said it's a global policy. Doctor is a global policy, we know. But there is a specific issue, local specific issue, state specific issue, regional specific issue. And we have to deal on that. We have to act on that. Yes, I agree there is a global issue. But it is said that think globally, act locally. We have to act locally. Because it's a universal message. I also think that how far this kind of discussion for academic consumption can change the lifestyle of the common people, you see, who are the main players in the long run. Dr. Prasad Kumar, this is my humble submission. How far high-level discussion like this for academic consumption can change, influence the lifestyle, day-to-day working of common people. Because these people who are very much important. They create havoc. They create wealth also. Another one, sir, growth or development demands both destruction and creation. Any development, any growth, any solution for that matter demands destruction of a few resources and also creation of something new. So we sometimes say creation and destruction, or destruction and creation go together. But how to balance? That is our concern. Anyway, I think we have had very quite a good discussion. I congratulate the resource persons. 10 resource person. I hope we have learned a lot. Thank you very much on behalf of the Department of Ecology and Environment. Thank you very, very much.
Yeah, I just wanted to talk about, see, we have been, this whole 2 days we have been discussing about climate change and, mitigations and best practices and all these things. But I think it will be best if we stop beating around the bush and actually start addressing the real problem, which is the problem of like what model of development are we looking at and what model of development is actually being pushed onto us. And is it the whole neoliberal capitalistic sort of a, thing as the best model that we're trying to follow, or are we actually trying to come up with an alternative? And in that regard also, I just wanted to say that we need to have an economic policy which is in tandem with all these adaptation and mitigation policies as well. And I think Professor Rajmohan, who has actually gone, had mentioned about EIA also. So with regards to that, the whole idea of forests and conservation and all these things, and this particular push for this whole PPP model that has been really pushed on by most of all of the governments, it's actually very alarming, and in the sense that, again, when I'm saying stop beating around the bushes, the EIAs are sometimes even looked at as just a formality. So we need to be actually serious about, actually doing the work as it is to be done, and not just this whole, complacent about our own Thika culture and just turning the whole blind eye sort of a thing.
We are happy that we have been put as a stakeholder, and for that matter, who is not a stakeholder when it comes to climate change? Every one of us are stakeholders. But the point I'm trying to say is that we need to go beyond just labeling us as a stakeholder, because we are the force multiplier. Whatever you do, whatever you discuss here, like you said, the change of habit with the people, that's what's the end point, that's where the buck stops. When you get people to change the habit, adapt to climate change practices, then only everything that is discussed here, everything, the research work will be translated to work.
Instead of only using the land use land cover map, it would be more suitable if we can come up with a land potentiality map, than land suitability map. These two maps, please kindly note down if you are noting down. These two maps will be very helpful, because if we are to fight the climate change and we are to adapt to the climate change, we really need to identify those species which will be helping us in the future and which we will be depending upon. And accordingly, we can come up with the land potentiality map and then land suitability map. We can come up with this suitability map. This suitability map will tell us which crop will be suitable to plant at a particular place.
I wanted to point out to Amay something that environmental or any kind of reporting can be interesting, provided that we know, like we take interest in what we are writing in. Yes, the media can be the bridge between what is being discussed here and what will go down to the people's level. But for that, we need a better linkage and better communication with all the departments. Because a lot of studies, a lot of discussion, it doesn't come to us. For instance, the state, we have been discussing a lot of about a lot of policies, that this policy needs to be there, that policy needs to be there. But a lot of policies are already there in the draft form, but it's not available for discussion or study online or in the departments themselves. So for us journalists to write about something in a way that would be interesting to our editors and also to the people who is going to read it, a lot of academic studies, a lot of these draft proposals, a lot of data which we need are not given to us in time.
This government, they brings like varieties of schemes, such a beautiful schemes, but then government sometimes fail to understand or to look into the real need of the people in the village, because they sit in the office, make plans and make schemes, but then it is not really when it comes to the place, it is not really practical. And also here talking about agriculture policy, when we say hill areas, the hill areas of the other part of India and the hill areas of Northeast, particularly this Manipur, is completely different, because we have to really take into consideration the land laws. So if we have to, I felt that if we have to bring this agricultural policy, then I think the land laws should be changed, or a different land laws should be introduced in the hill areas.
So isn't it the responsibility of the agriculture department to have a mechanism to ensure that we have food security policy or mechanism in place? So that's my question. Thank you.
So we have to produce something which is very costly and you can get a higher price, and the volume should be less. So it is called low volume, high value. So it may be any commodity. That's why, suppose if you are producing a good quantity of fruits, if you just pre-process, you can bring it to IMPHAL, or you can take to Dimapur or wherever factory is there for further processing and value addition and labeling. If you produce organic, that will get more price. Okay. So the question is, why we are going for shifting cultivation, why we are going for zooming, is mainly because we are very poor, we don't have resources, we have to cut the trees, we have to sell them, we have to go for zooming where you don't get good yield or good economic return. Okay, everybody knows what practicing zoom also. But there is no alternative. So we have the alternatives. Only thing is how to take it, how to implement it. So that system has to be created. Like what you said, we have policy, we should have an agriculture policy, okay?
As a representative from IMI, just one reflection or maybe one comment suggestion to make, that we could, what we could do with the newer versions of SAPCCs could be to make them more holistic and integrated documents, instead of clubbing them into, categorizing them into department 1, department 2, and mission this and mission that. Instead, this is the chance that we are getting to do it all over again. So maybe the second version of the document could be much more integrated.
I would like to say only 5 points only, that regarding the media, since media is playing a very vital role in such a this exercises. Climate change is such a complex issue because it is a very cross-cutting issue. That's why it touches to all peoples, to all sectors, to all sections. Now, as stated by our Robindro, that media should be beyond stakeholder. Of course, we are thinking on that also, but we are requesting to all media peoples that We have also pre-discussion before this workshop with the Hill Journalists Union. It was very much informal discussion, but I just expecting from the Hill Journalists Union that please try to bring out some village profile from your end so that we can use as is that document. So it is my request from my department side and the media fellowship, of course, we have the provision for a media fellowship will be very soon will be starting. Before that, I would like to have one exhaustive discussion amongst the media that how we will report and just like capacity building type or some introduction we should have before that starting the fellowship so that we can extend the fellowship exercise to the media. So I would like to request especially to my Tamil movie that please help us to do that media fellowship as well to generate the young medias in the climate context as well as the environment context. So please bring out some story from your village itself, from your district itself. It should be the success story related to climate change process, climate change adaptation. This is my request to the media friends today. Then about this 1.5 to 2 days is very short to us for discussion and for listening to all. This is very limited time, so I have many questions. I have lots of answers also, but don't have enough time. That's why I just in my mind I'm just thinking that we let us try from our side, from the department side, we will try to organize such type of the sectoral workshop, not the whole integrated workshop. Sectoral workshop, say for example for water resources only, for agricultural sector only, and but the participants should be in this type of participants. So that multidisciplinary participants is very fruitful to all, but sector may be divided in one piece days. And I would like to request to the CAU as well as the Manipur University so that they have the more provision for the spaces and for that devices for such conducting the workshop. Have your flexibility. Don't make any limitations on your work. Independent research is very much required now. So do your research as independently and listen from the people, then try to bring out good suggestions so that we can use as a government policy. Because research policy is very much required in our state now. So I need the research policy. So the research papers should be applied as a research policy.